Greetings, folks. Welcome back to the Jason Damico Show. We've got a very special guest for you, as always. And our guest has been president of Rock and Retail since 1991 in the online music marketing division, Web and Retail. She has over 30 years of music marketing experience, including positions held at J. Walter Thompson Advertising, Ornstein, Savage Advertising, Billboard Magazine, Mix Magazine, ABC and MCA Records, Warehouse Entertainment Corporation, Polygram Distribution. She's an instructor at UCLA Extension, subject of entrepreneurship of the independent musician, as well as guest lecturer at UCLA. And she's on the subject of, and speaking on the subject of viral social media marketing. She attended San Diego State University with a major in journalism and a minor in advertising. Please welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi,
my
Jason.
friend Gale Rosenberg. Good to see you.
Hello. Hi, Jason.
We overcame the technical difficulties and the obstacles of Web 2.0. I'm glad that we have you on the other side of cyberspace, clearly seen and clearly heard.
Yes, it was a challenge, but we worked our way through it.
You've got quite the resume and experience. I guilty as charged, went to LinkedIn besides your website and just kind of perused a little bit and saw what you've been up to. Really incredible scope of industry material. And I know your story about how you got into the industry, but I was wondering if you could just expand for a couple of minutes. It's a phenomenal story how you actually got into the music industry.
Yeah, my accidental career story.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I actually was living in Hawaii after college, and I moved back because I wanted to be in the TV industry. And obviously LA is a place to do that, which is where I'm from and born and raised. And excuse me. So I came back and set up whatever interviews I could with TV stations. And I went to CBS television on Beverly and, I don't know, Beverly, it's right next to Farmers Market and what is now the Grove, CBS Television City. And I had an interview with this woman who her first question was, what's the difference between sales and marketing? And I had no idea. So I just gave her what my best answer was. And she basically turned around and looked at me and said, you'll never work in this field. In fact, you'll never work anywhere because you don't even know the basic answer to that question. So I left there crying, just really upset because this put a damper on my whole return to LA thing. And
right.
So I went across the street to try and find a restroom to clean myself up because I had another interview at Casablanca Films, also known as Casablanca Records, the home of the Bee Gees, etc., during the disco era. And so I went to go find a restroom. I went to the Carriage Trade restaurant, which I'll never forget, and it was closed. So I just kind of went up and down the street looking for glass doors that would open, and I opened a glass door. And I asked the girl sitting at the desk if I could use the restroom, and she buzzed me into the restroom, and then I did whatever I had to do and came out, and she goes, is everything okay? So I told her the story. And her name, by the way, is Lisa Bigelow. If anybody ever finds Lisa Bigelow, please send her my way because I so owe her a thank you for my entire career because she was a floater at ABC Records. So she says, I'm a floater and you don't need any experience for that. And they just promoted me. So my position's open. You want to go down the block and meet my boss, whose name for the record was Rick Ward, who died of AIDS back at that time. But so I met with Rick Ward and never made it to Casablanca, which was fine because they closed down anyway. But that was a Casablanca, they took all their employees on a 1-month cruise for Christmas, and they were the big money maker at the time. I think they produced Saturday Night Live, maybe.
Wow.
So anyway, that's how I wound up in the record business. And it was a great job because I got to do a little bit of everything. I was exposed to every department, down to being on my hands and knees in the art director's office while Tom Petty and his band were in there. And one time I was dusting, that's what I was doing. I was dusting his office and I was like invisible to them, right? So one time he had Tom Petty in there, another time he had Steely Dan in there. So I was literally a fly on the wall, picking up dust balls. And I worked in publicity and I worked the switchboard. And after work, I would always go up into the studio because I was really interested in what they did up there. I met Jimmy Iovine there. I learned how to smoke pot up there. I met Shaka Khan and a really famous producer or engineer named Humberto, but I cannot remember his last name right now. But anyway, I got exposed to all these different areas, and I knew that I was interested in creative services and marketing, but they didn't really have a marketing department per se. So rumor had it that they had been bought by MCA Records and that the layoffs were going to begin shortly. I was in the first round of layoffs, and I went and applied at MCA, which is shared a HR waiting area with the casting of Universal Pictures. So there's like 1,000 people there. And I'm like, I'm not even going to bother to put my resume in the box or fill out the application. There's just too many people here, and I don't even know if they have a job open. So stuck it in my purse, went to use the bathroom, and this woman with long hair just pushed me up against the door and pushed me out of the way and pushed her way into the stall, flung the door open, and she starts throwing up. And she's got really long hair. So as a woman, we do these things. I walked in there and I held her hair back for her while she was puking. And when she was done, she said, "What are you here for?" And I said, "Well, I was hoping to apply for a job at MCA Records, but you know, there's just too many people out there. I don't even know if there's a position open." She goes, "Well, there is a position open." And I had told her I just moved back from Hawaii. And she said, "And the art director is from Kauai, which is where I lived, and he will adore you. So come on in. I'm head of HR." Right?
Man, you in bathrooms.
It was meant to be, you know.
There's something going on there.
There was something cosmic going on there, definitely. Because I never applied in the record industry.
Wow.
I was never even really a music fan. I didn't sit on the senior quad and sing Stairway to Heaven and strum the guitar and hang around the rockers. And so, yeah, so here I am 30 years later. And my best advice is if you want to be in music and you get into it, you better make sure you want to stay because it's really hard to get out, both physically and emotionally. It's hard to do anything else. And it's hard to move from the record industry. I tried to get back in the hotel industry at one point, which I did when I lived in Hawaii. No, it doesn't seem to translate anywhere. It's kind of like, you know, you join the mob, you can't get out. So better know what you're doing when you make that commitment.
So well said. So well said. And I've been deep in since my toddler years, so I'm totally screwed. Influences for you, if there were any, during those early years, maybe from an entrepreneurial standpoint or creative marketing. If anybody?
Well, if you have time for another story, I have a really good story.
Of course.
When I moved from ABC to MCA, they had a lot of Black artists, you know, like the Floaters, and they had a really big, they bought Blue Note, I think it was. So they had a really big, like, old time jazz department. And the first job I ever heard of called urban marketing, urban being the politically correct term, was a position that was created at MCA for a guy that basically did a lot of the, I believe, radio promotion for the urban artists at ABC. So I never knew him at ABC, but he moved over to MCA. His name is John Smith. And he was probably the only Black person working in the whole record company that I remember. But we became good friends. He was, 20 years older than me. But I looked up to him as a mentor because he was really kind. And he was like the only person that really listened to me and took me seriously when I asked a question. And over the years after MCA, we ran into each other and stayed in touch for like 20 years and then, or 10 years. And then I lost track of him. And I figured one day I'll run into him again because I always used to run into him in these bizarre places. Well, back just this last year, I had the TV on while I was doing the dishes, and it was Spectrum One Sports. They call it Behind the Sports segment. And so I don't watch sports, so I wasn't paying attention. I had my back to the TV. And they were talking about a guy that is a vet, and the host had met him at the airport in his wheelchair. And him and the host hooked up and made friends. So they celebrated him at Vets Day at Dodger Stadium. And the whole interview was about that and his backstory. So then I hear him say something about gold records. And I listen to the voice and I'm like, what? And I turn around and he's showing them the gold records on his wall in his VA room. And it's all of the urban artists, Hot Chocolate and ABC Records and the thing. And I'm thinking, oh, he probably bought those at a thrift store or something. Lo and behold, it's John Smith.
Wow.
Right? What are the chances of that?
Man.
So I called the VA hospital, it's a VA residence home. I left a message for him, never heard back. Called again, left a message, never heard back. Third time I called was Christmas Day, I believe it was. And I got an immediate call back from John Smith. And he was so happy to hear from me and he was crying. He was so happy to hear from me. So we caught up for about, I don't know, an hour and a half. He has MS now, so it's difficult for him to speak, but I could pretty much understand everything he said. So I went to go visit him, and we hung out for a little while, and I keep track of him. I call and check on him periodically, and I've got his daughter's phone number now in case, she's in Sacramento, I think, so in case she ever needs somebody to run over there, I'm not that far away. So beautiful story. And I told him the other day, I was reading through my diary, which I kept diaries all the way back to like elementary school. And I had told him that I remembered him as being so kind and so respectful. And I hung out at his house and he didn't jump my bones when I was 18, which is pretty unusual for that at that time.
Right.
I always felt safe with him, Yeah. So I read him a couple of passages out of my diary about him. That's exactly what I wrote, was that he was the only one that listened to me. He got me a limo from some band that was using it at night, and it was sitting around during the day. And I had been in a car accident, so he got me a limo to go to physical therapy 3 days a week. He had the props department give me a whiplash collar that was lined in black, like silk material with pearls on it. And it's all in my diary, documented just the way I remembered it.
Wow.
So is that not a great story?
That's great.
Yeah. He told me I made his Christmas 100 times over.
I bet.
So
that's great that you guys got to reacquaint like that.
Yeah. So you asked about my influences.
Yeah.
He taught me a lot. He also taught me what pitfalls to watch out for. And then I had another boss who I'm friends with still today, Patty. She ran a video catalog. When videos very first came out, VHS tapes. And she taught me, she was a full-on entrepreneur with no fear. She taught me gobs and gobs about how I run my business now. And again, there's some things I didn't like the way she did them, so I don't do it that way.
Right.
But my filing system and the way I deal with people on the phone and things like that, more John taught me the untangibles, and I think Patty taught me more the tangibles.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, while you mention entrepreneurship, if we could stay there for a couple of minutes, obviously the merging in the music industry and entrepreneurship is paramount for success. Whether you're an artist, whether you're working with a label, whether you are managing a band, an agent, whatever. Just your thoughts, perhaps, on the merging of those two worlds and how they can coexist.
The merging of, let me make sure I'm clear.
Music and entrepreneurship, or music and business.
Like an artist and entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
Or a manager and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, we could go that route.
Okay. Is it okay if I grab my drink?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I thought it was right there. But
you can't drink. You can't do anything.
And perfect timing because Brownie's barking now. All right, no barking. No. All right, so as an entrepreneur, you always have more to do than you have time to do.
Right.
And so time management is a big aspect of it. My right-hand guy that had worked here for a year and a half, when I asked him to tell future interns what he learned here, he said, most of all, time management. So we have a timer that we set for social media because you could go on all day and not get your other stuff done. We have a schedule that whenever anybody finishes anything, they mark it off and the day they did it, so that if you have a band and band member A was supposed to do your social media, but you find out that it wasn't done 3 weeks ago, you can look back and see who didn't do it,
right,
or who did do it. And if there's a problem with it, or you've got a whole album full of, in my case, you've got an album you're working with, but you're working one particular track on the album, and so that did the social media was talking about the wrong track. That way you have a record of who to go to get things running smoothly, especially if you're in remote locations, right? Because it's very hard to give concise directions that change all the time when you have to email somebody or call them or text them.
Right.
Sometimes you're busy and you just don't think about it, which we had that situation this week. So I think being organized, which most musicians are not, is really important. I think backing into your time schedule, which I had a great speaker, Brian Shafton from RBC Records, that has like pretty much every giant hip hop artist on his label. He did a whole thing at UCLA for me where he showed them how to back into a schedule if you were putting out, for instance, physical goods. Like it has to be on, you start with the end point.
Right.
Let's say it has, what's that?
The end in mind. Yeah.
Well, no, actually you start there and you work your way back.
Right.
So, and when I say the printing plant, think of it as Spotify.
Sure.
Your stuff has to be at the plant on this day. That, and I used to do this. This is part of my job at MCA also. That means the art director has to be done, or whoever you hire to do it, has to be done by this day. That art directors are notoriously late. So you build in another 5 days. And if you have those extra 5 days, you might also use them for corrections that need to be made, right? And then you keep backing up, like all the way back to when they have to have it mastered, when they have to be out of the studio and finish with what needs to be mastered, which means when do they have to go into the studio realistically to get to that point. Right. So it goes all the way back.
Right.
Right. And they call that, in the ad business, they call that trafficking. Although trafficking has come to a different bad name, but right. I was the traffic manager at J. Walter Thompson, traffic coordinator at J. Walter Thompson.
So it's ultimate time management then on that
level. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really felt like a babysitter. And I wasn't very well liked because I was always saying, you're supposed to be done with that. Why aren't you done with that? So you learn to pad your time frames, you
Right.
know,
Right.
and be realistic about what you can deliver. Um, so yeah, that would be my that time management and organization are key because your band is a business. You have to look at it as a business. My whole class was scheduled about, we had two sections to my class at UCLA. One was a guest speaker that talked about different factors of the record industry, radio promotions, streaming, how to digital distribution, so on and so forth. And then the second half of my class, because it was a 3-hour class, so we had a lot of time. The second hour of the class was setting yourself up as a business. So I started with them basically uh, selecting the colors for your band that you're going to use in your logo, selecting the typeface you're going to use, making sure you like that branding because you're stuck with that branding, right? And clearly a country artist and an EDM artist are not going to look the same, right? Country artists, you're going to have boots and wood, and an EDM artist, you're going to have strobe lights, and it's going to be fluorescent colors. So if you go online and you Google electronic dance music typeface, they actually have that.
Right.
They have country typefaces, rock typefaces, great heavy metal typefaces with dripping blood and
Yeah.
lots of steel and lots of rap typefaces. So I would start with them there, and then I would walk them through writing a press release, writing a bio, setting up a website, making your demo, a whole kit of stuff that you need to actually get out there. That's what my class was about. So you have to be organized to get through all that stuff. You have to know where things are on the computer. The other people that might be going into your cloud to do work on their own stuff, they need to know where it is.
Right.
If they have to pick up artwork or whatever. So you have to treat it as a business.
Right. It's a system.
Well, I'm sorry, what?
It's a system.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like system management almost. Well, while we're on this, web and retail, you founded it 1991. Is that correct?
It was called Rock and Retail.
Rock and Retail. So what was the transition for you to kind of go out on your own at that point?
I did it for survival while I was waiting to get a job.
Okay.
Right. And the job never came. My last job was at Warehouse in 91. And the job never came, but by then I had met a lot of people in the industry, and I battered them with resumes. Probably half the people that I know in this industry that are like bigwigs, ex-vice presidents and presidents, and probably half of them know me because of the amount of resumes I sent them. And I would cold call them. I would go drop by, Pete Jones, who was president of BMG. After I bugged him like 4 or 5 times, he finally took my phone call. We didn't have emails back then. So
right.
He finally took my phone call and he said, listen, I don't know what to do with you because you really don't have any experience, but you're overqualified in a lot of the sense of qualifications. So he says, I'll tell you what, if you ever come to New York, just come by, give me an hour heads up and we'll meet in my office. So I got on a plane and went to New York and called him up and said, I'm in the lobby. So I went up and I met with him, and he said, I hope you're not insulted, but I have an account coordinator or a branch coordinator position in Los Angeles. And he says, it's kind of like a glorified secretary. And he goes, I know you've been more than a secretary already. So I hope you're not insulted. And I'm like, no, not at all. So that's where I wound up working. That was my next job. And then when I got laid off from the Warehouse in 91, I went back on the same plan. I'll find a job. I'll just freelance in the meantime. And then it never happened, or I got interest, but it wasn't the right job. And I was a little more picky by then. So I just kept going. And then when the internet came around in like 96, I was kind of already into it in 94 because I produced a television show because I didn't like anything that was on music TV wise. And my aunts died in New York and I got a little inheritance. So I put together a group of people and we made a TV show called Rock the Strip. And after I made it and we went to, I don't know, we did PR for ourselves so people would know it was out there. And I got a call from these internet developers. And I'm like, I don't even know what the internet is, but it wound up becoming the first ever 3D video on the internet, like a 3D show, like film, because we shot it on film. We got free CDs from the record labels to give out. We had a man on the street on Sunset Strip. The Whiskey A Go-Go was our home base.
Wow.
And they wanted to make it into an internet reality show. I'm like, first of all, I don't know what the internet is. Secondly, I don't know what a reality show is because there weren't any then. So they wound up putting it online. And I, having worked at Billboard, went to Billboard and said, we've now connected our show to a distributor that will send out product that we're promoting on the show. And I want to be a chart reporter. And after a few conversations, they said, okay, we'll make you a chart reporter. You'll be the first and only digital reporter of physical sales in perpetuity.
Wow.
Like forever. Needless to say, I lost that piece of paper. I also lost the piece of paper that said the whiskey couldn't have anybody else film in front except us. We put up an ad on Sunset Boulevard through a trade out I did with Gannett Outdoor. And it was the very first internet billboard. It said something like, now you've been on the real highway, now get on the internet highway. Or something clever like that.
Yeah.
So we raised awareness and we had people interested. So we went that route. And we sold ads because we were now a reporter. So as a chart reporter, we were very valuable. So that's how we got into the internet. And then when physical started totally dying out, I started taking the strengths that we had and the relationships we had at Rock and Retail and moving them onto the digital side, trying to mirror our strengths of moving product and building awareness. So I moved that online and it's web and retail. So we started web and retail really in 1994, but that was with the TV show, internet show. We didn't really start web and retail online, doing online marketing until 96 or 96. Yeah, 96. I think that's right.
So with the, I guess we'll move more into streaming. One of your major components for, most of the sales that you do these days, I'm assuming, have to do with artists and playlists and streaming. What are your thoughts on that in the last 5 to 10 years? I've also got a bullet point, which is old school versus new school methodology of music promotion. It's quite frank that there's obviously differences, and a lot of people are aware of those differences. But with your expertise and your experience, just curious to hear your thoughts on some of those and just talk a little bit about
after we do that, old school, new school, there's a future school too. And I'll share that with your listeners because it's really valuable information.
Wow.
That I'm very set on getting the information out there. I tell everybody and anybody because nobody knows about it. So starting with old school to new school, Spotify is basically replacing, and all the radio promoters are going to be really mad that I said this, but it's basically replacing traditional radio promotion. Traditional radio promotion has always been very costly. Obviously, the people are consuming music in a different way. When they're getting in their car, most people are not turning on the radio. They're plugging their phone in or getting it on the Bluetooth and listening
Right.
to their own playlists. So,
Right.
you know, you got to recognize that as the second coming,
Oh, it's here.
Right,
As
exactly.
a millennial, I can confidently say that it's here. It's been here
Right,
for a
right.
few years.
So I saw streaming coming up, and I spent about 2 years. I was 2 years late getting into the market to offer services because I found it so complicated and I just couldn't understand it.
Oh, it's
So
still, yeah.
yeah, first my staff did a comparison of all the existing streaming sites at the time. Then we decided which one had the most millennial approach
Right.
and some other criteria that we needed, and it was Spotify. So we started with Spotify, and we're still only doing Spotify. But I realized that it was like starting a radio promotion firm, and you don't just jump into a radio promotion firm because it's based on relationships, and those relationships have to be gathered throughout the years. And I have my relationships with the marketing people, but not on the radio side because they're very separate. Or in the old days, they're very separate. So rather than trying to reinvent the wheel and start pretty much a new business, I used one of my clients, as they were aware, as a guinea pig to go out and try several different Spotify services and see what happens, see how they do it. So I tried, I believe, 4 of them. At the time, there were only like 6 of them. Now there's hundreds of them.
Right.
I found the weak links of what I know to be important to indie artists and labels that are spending money. Every one I tried had a weak link. So I took those weak links. I found one company, which was the only company that would give me a guarantee, where I actually knew what I was buying. Like I knew I was going to get a certain amount of combined followers. I didn't know how many streams I was going to get, but I had to recognize that if you go out buying streams from any company, it's bogus because nobody has a crystal ball.
Right.
Nobody can tell you if you put your track up that it's going to get 1 million streams in a month. That's impossible.
Right.
Unless you're using bots. And Spotify is really cracking down on that. We don't use bots. Ours is, everything we do here is organic and low overhead. That's how we keep our prices down. I haven't raised my prices in 8 years now. And prior to that, I think it was 10 years. So we still try to be within a financial area that that indies can afford. So of these 5 companies, I was very impressed with one of them, but they also had weak links. And their weak link was that when their program stopped, your streams went from there to there. And that was a problem a lot of them had, was while it's being promoted, your spike's going up. When it's over, it just drops off. So what I set out to do was to, A, give my customers a guarantee. That guarantee is not for streams. It's for how many followers we're going to reach on other indie curated playlists. So if you buy a 300,000 combined playlist package, we're going to get you 300,000 rather. We're going to get you 300,000 combined followers. And that could be across 10 playlists, 20 playlists, 30 playlists, but we're going to deliver to you the stats that come from those followers, and they're very strong playlists with very strong stats. So that was one thing. The other thing was the time frame. I always spread my campaigns out over 3 to 4 months, because that's what an indie budget does. You don't go in and buy something for 2 weeks and blow through your whole 6 months of budget over 2 weeks.
Right.
So you want longevity. So our campaigns all last 12 weeks, 3 months, which our clients love. Once we've met the combined follower numbers, once my partners have met the combined follower numbers, we start on what's called the post-placement period, which can last anywhere from probably 6 to 8 weeks. So what we do is we keep the growth. It may be up here, and then it's going to come down to like here. And we keep it going like this. That way, when we're done, it still hasn't fallen all the way off.
Right.
So we employ a variety of techniques. We do collaborative placements where we can put it on somebody's collaborative playlist. We do manual submissions one by one to playlists in the right genre. We do e-blasts that go out to Spotify curators and independent curators, and we do social media outreach. Then we do detailed reports every 2 weeks that show you the percentage of how much it's gone up or down, generally up. Our reports are extremely detailed, probably too detailed, but we feel that if you're spending money on us learning about you, that you should have all the stuff that we have. So like if we're doing a social media campaign and we run a test ad for $10, we're going to send you our analytics on your report so that you can see the same thing we're seeing, which is this interest group, and this interest group came in at a top conversion rate versus these two interest groups just didn't do anything. And it'll say right on our report, we're removing these off the next ad. So we shave down the demographics as we do the ads, and we share all that information with you. And what that does is, and I learned this also at J. Walter Thompson, what that does is by shaving down your demographics 1, 2, 3 times for a total of like $30, what we're able to do is get the conversion rate from impressions to views up, or fans or likes or whatever it is, and bring your cost per view or fan down till it gets down as low as we think it could go.
Yeah.
And then you'll have all the data. You'll have everything you need to go run your own ad and use the same demographics and geographics and all that stuff. So we're very transparent. All of our prices are listed on our website in one place or another. And we work with bands based on their budget, the services that they need at that time in their career. And then we'll put it all together for them. We can do this, this, and this for this much money. But we can't do that because we don't have enough money for that. Right. Or we can do a little less of this and a little more of that, you know. So that's how we operate.
Where you said future school, where
I said it so I wouldn't forget.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that for sure.
Okay. What is coming in the future, but it's really already here, and it's not new. It's been around for 8 to 10 years now. It's called OTT delivery. OTT stands for over the top, and it means any music videos or audio that's delivered via a cell phone, an iPad, a PlayStation, anything that's not traditional television or airwave delivery. I'm not real clear on, Roku, anything that comes through a Roku player.
Right.
That's all falls into OTT.
Okay.
OTT pays separate royalties. I've done a tremendous amount of research on this, and I know that ASCAP is likely the one that's paying your royalties for OTT if you're a member of ASCAP, and even if you're not, because there's only one place that supposedly is paying them right now. So OTT or ASCAP should be giving it to BMI if you're on BMI. It doesn't necessarily show up as OTT revenue though, which is why there's a big confusion. Nobody knows, nobody can track it like cookie crumbs because it's kind of lumped in with the other royalties. But you get a royalty anytime your music video is watched on there's a show in Wisconsin, or was, called Fox Tracks, and it was an independent music video show. So if somebody was watching it on their iPad or their cell phone, and your music video played, you would get revenue for that if, and only if, in the case of music video, only if you have a separate ISRC number embedded into your music video. That separate number is a video only number.
Wow.
It starts with the number 9, and you can order it online or you can order it from us because we're licensed by the RIAA to issue those. Most everybody thinks that the audio track that's playing with the video or behind the video, because it has an ISRC number, that's covering you for that. But it's not. You have to have a video ISRC number just for video, and it has to be embedded in your master video. And you should do that before you put your video anywhere. YouTube pays monetization, so they may or may not pay OTT. Don't know that yet. Facebook and Instagram pay OTT. And ASCAP specifically told me that they have a license with Facebook and Instagram for that purpose for videos that you put on their platform. And again, the gentleman I talked to said, you won't see it as OTT revenue. It'll be lumped in with your social media, whatever revenues you're getting there. Another thing is there's a revenue line, and it's not regarding OTT, but Spotify, if somebody saves your track to play it off air, you're getting royalties on that too. So saves to us are really important. Going back to OTT, I spoke with trying to track down. I talked to Sound Exchange. I talked to ASCAP. I talked to BMI. As frustrated as I was, I got on the phone and I called this guy who's president of the OTT Summit Group, television buyers that now buy for OTT, or they buy for both. You know, ABC has OTT now. NBC has OTT now. Everybody's got OTT now, right? So he said to me, I said, are you paying royalties to musicians for like music videos? He goes, when I buy a program, I buy a whole video program that's got like 6, 7 videos in it. I buy it from the distributor or the producer. And in the agreement, it says that I don't have to worry about who's paying those royalties to the artist, that the royalties will be paid. I pay a flat fee. I just need that to exempt me from an artist coming after my firm personally.
Right.
You know, like if we air a Rolling Stones concert video, you know, it's not my responsibility. It's who I bought it from. So he says, so I know they're being paid. I don't know who's paying them, but I know they're being paid. So truthfully, ASCAP was the only one that ever heard of OTT. I talked to a couple of people that handle royalties for big, huge stars. Never heard of OTT.
Wow.
And that's their job, is to handle royalties.
Wow.
So if the artists aren't getting these royalties, this is billions of dollars we're talking about.
Yeah.
I think, and don't quote me on this, but I think the last OTT Summit newsletter I got said they're anticipating that the business will be worth $240 billion in the next few years.
Well, and that's a majority of the music that's being played. There's usually a video sync to it.
Now there is.
Now,
back as early ago as a year ago, I asked one of my clients to call their major record label and make sure that they had a video ISRC number. And not the first time it's happened, it's probably like the 5th time it happened with the 5 majors, where they said to the artist, we don't issue ISRC video numbers because videos are just for promotional use. But they're not anymore.
Not
they're
anymore.
Considered prime entertainment now.
Right.
But unless the label has an interest in a percentage of that revenue, they're not going to bother giving you an ISRC number.
Wow.
So mostly the older acts, before the 360 deals came around, the older acts need to take care of it on their own. The newer acts, the medium level, the high level newer acts, their label is they're probably on a 360 deal with their label, meaning their label gets a piece of everything. And that's why now all of a sudden most of them are automatically issuing these video ISRC numbers.
Wow.
Isn't that mind-boggling?
So you're a wealth of knowledge, and I remember we had this conversation a while back last year, but just hearing even more detail about it, and now seeing it in 2020, especially with everybody quarantined in and everybody consuming so much video, it's just even more prevalent. And as we start to wrap up here to a certain degree, future plans for you and with the industry. I mean, your thoughts on kind of where things are going as far as live music. I ask everybody this question. Nobody knows the answer as far as what that's going to look like, as far as going back to normal and how
Yeah,
long
I
it
don't
will
know.
take. Yeah.
I when I had a speaker in at UCLA like 6 years ago who started an online streaming concert site. He actually had developed the internet protocol for Roadrunner. You
Wow.
remember Roadrunner?
Way back.
Way back. But anyway, he had started an online concert thing, and I kept pushing it to my students and my my clients. Nobody had any interest in it, right? So where that's going to go, I don't know. Where the coffee shop kind of events are, maybe that'll become the norm instead of the big forum type audiences.
Right.
Then again, Americans are pretty fickle. They might just forget about the whole thing.
Right.
2 months, 3 months from now, it'll be forgotten. And maybe everybody's going to go back to the way life was. I find myself forgetting. I've been in for 7 weeks now. And I found myself face to face with a friend of mine yesterday who's been getting me my groceries and stuff. And I always answer the door with the mask and the gloves. I make her stand really far apart. And then yesterday, I looked up and we were like this close to each other with no mask, no gloves. I'm like, well, because she's she's acting like nothing's going on. She's out at all these different markets and the stores and so it's like back in the day of AIDS, one person, they had a chart. It had one person became 2 people, then it became 4 people, then it became like 100 people at the bottom.
Exponential, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know the answer to that, but I do believe that, and have believed for the last 8 years, that OTT is totally the wave of the future. Because I think even like Spectrum, our big internet company here, or a cable company, they're offering programs to get you off their equipment that are strictly streaming.
Right.
So if I turn in my cable boxes, no matter what I watch, it's going to be coming through my Roku player.
Yep.
Off the Spectrum app. So that means everything's going to be streaming.
That's what we did. We went to Roku last year with all the units, and it's been, there's no looking back.
Yeah, should I do it? I'm a little nervous.
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
The remotes are a little BS, but you just got to kind of whack them once in a while.
Oh, but I like that they make that bing, bing, bing noise.
Yeah, I've got one right there. Yeah.
The cable company remote, it's like my exercise. Turn the channel. You're like up right against the TV and it still won't turn the freaking channel.
They're pretty nifty, those little Rokus,
They are.
You got your YouTube app, the Hulu, the Netflix. So it's all.
I bought an Apple phone, so I got free Apple TV for a year.
Okay.
I signed up for Amazon Prime, so I got free Amazon Prime for a year.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Anyway, that's where it's going. I don't think it's a premonition. I think it's a fact
you're 100% right with that. Real quick, I was going to ask you best and worst experiences in the industry, even though you've kind of told us your worst, which was really perhaps your best, because without what would have happened, but if you have any, without using any names, if you want to keep anonymity.
Oh, no, I want to use the name.
Okay.
This was my best and my worst experience all at the same time.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. In the 80s, my boss, who was the art director for MCA, George Osaki, sent me to Century City Plaza while they were shooting the Olivia Newton-John Totally Hot video. She was all the way up on this big escalator that looked like it went off into the sky, and she had on her red spandex, and that you see on the cover. And he said, "I need you to go there and ask Olivia if she's coming to my house for dinner tonight." And I said, "What?" He's like, I go, "But they're shooting a video." He goes, "Well, you tell them that George said to interrupt them." So I go, I'm like 17 years old, right?
Oh.
So I go there, there's this whole big crew, and I like had to tap this guy in the back, and I go, "Hi, George wants me to ask Olivia a question." He's like, "George who?" I tell him, "George who?" So I ask her the question. She comes down the escalator. I ask her the question. She answers the question. I go to the phone booth to call George, and George says, "What did she say?" And I said, "I can't remember." I was so freaking nervous. I couldn't remember what she said,
Yeah.
whether it was yes or no. So he goes, "Well, go back and ask her again."
Oh, no.
Which is what I had to do.
Oh.
All right. So best and worst all at the same time. I felt like an idiot, but I got the job done.
Right. Did she say yes or no?
I don't remember. I remember, I did remember at the time, but I don't remember what the answer was.
Right.
I was like shaking when I got back in my car.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Well, I've got a fun little thing I like to do at the end. I just I write down like 8 or 10 words, and I'll just hit you one by one with them, and you just say the first word that comes back to mind. They're all industry related.
Okay.
So for you, it'll be usually with artists, it's a little bit more like gear or instruments. So for you, I've got just general like music.
I thought you said
stuff.
beer.
Well, that too. Sometimes that shows up too, you know.
All right, I'll do what I can.
All right. Internet.
Music.
Spotify.
Streaming.
Marketing.
I'm sorry?
Marketing.
Free advertising.
Interesting. Entrepreneurship.
Challenging and rewarding. I'm sorry, that was 3 words.
But that's still it still works. Technology.
Frustrating.
Yes. And I'm millennial, and it is. Labels.
Interesting.
Yeah. Independent.
Brave.
LA.
I'm sorry?
LA, Los Angeles.
My hometown.
Streaming.
Spotify.
Radio.
Car.
I thought you were going to say dead, but
I almost said that.
yeah, I kind of like had a weird telepathy thing with you right there for a second.
I decided to be more diplomatic.
Right. Social media.
Frustrating.
I'm not going to argue with you. All right, last one. It's the most important. Pizza.
Pizza. Anchovies.
Wow.
I love anchovies. What can I say?
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, that's old school.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
They'll come back in style. You wait and see. I went to this pish-poshy, uppity French deli for a business lunch, and they served egg salad with anchovies. I'm like, if I had a grandmother, I'd ask her if that was a thing. But yeah, I'd never heard of that before. They're making a comeback.
Wow. Well, if you so I've got one last question for you. Thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
This has been great, and we'll plug all of your website information, social media in a second. But if you could go back in time to your 15-year-old self, knowing what you know now, what would you tell her?
Well, since I've been reading all my old diaries, I would say stop chasing boys and focus on yourself.
That's great.
Ta-da!
That is great. Where can folks find you, Gale? We'll have all this information in the description box below or to the sides. Depends on if you guys are on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, wherever. But
yeah, we have all of our services are available at a website called Music Marketing by Web N Retail. So web and then the letter N and then retail.com. We have a dedicated Spotify website, www.spotifypromotions.net. And my email address, which is all over both websites, is WEBN Retail, Web and Retail, at cs.com. CS like Cat Sam or Charlie Sheen or whatever you want to use. And yes, it's part of AOL, I know, and it's old like me. So there you have it. And my phone number, you're welcome to call here for, as you can see, I like to share with people, so I might have to do it in a lot faster manner, but my phone number is also all over the website. You can reach me at area code 818-453-8777. And we do have intern training programs here. I think I've trained like over 150 interns over 30 years. We almost always have one opening. Right now we're full, but if you want to apply to be an intern, you have to work out of our office, which is in Oxnard, California, out by the beach, about 48 miles north of Los Angeles. So if you go to UCSB, be that Santa Barbara, or you live in Simi Valley or the West Valley or Moore Park or Westlake, Thousand Oaks, you'd be a prime candidate to be able to commute here because we're kind of off the beaten path by choice. So you can just send me your resume at that email address, or you can give me a call. Preferably just send me a resume, and we'll be in touch when we have an opening. We always respond.
Very cool. Very cool. I'll ask you this real quick. Now, after all the years, what would your response be to the woman that asked you the question about what's the difference between sales and marketing?
Well, chances are she's probably deceased, right? But the answer would be sales is when you're physically selling somebody something. You're a salesperson. You're giving them reasons why they should buy it, and you're trying to close the deal and get them to the register, whether that be online or be in a physical store. Marketing is free advertising that's all about grunt work and entrepreneurship. And it's basically like advertising for free versus paying for an ad in a newspaper. And if you get that out all over the internet, which is our source of where we find things now, then when they walk into that store, they are going to know what they want to buy. So it's driving traffic for a product to the end seller. I think I could probably do better than that, but does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I don't want to be in sales. So doing the cold calling like I used to have to do, that's how I know all these people. I had binders full of record labels. There were 3 of them. They were like this fat. In fact, I still have. And I would just every day go through them and cold call all these vice presidents with no fear. And then if I ever got to the end, I'd just go back and start at the beginning again. That's pretty much how everybody knows me, that and resumes, having sent out so many resumes.
How I got to ask this real quick too before I let you go. How have you stayed motivated all these, just through all the changes?
It's survival. Like I could never consider going to work. Sorry to my brother, who's an entrepreneur in the financial business. I could never go to work for an insurance company. I would shrivel up and die.
Right.
I could never be a laborer. I'm just not cut out for that. I'm not athletic, and I like to be in control of things. If my name's attached to it, I'd like to be in control of it.
Right.
So if there's a blame to take, I'll take it. But I don't like taking the blame for other people doing crappy work.
Right.
And at the record labels, that's a lot of. I was the branch coordinator at PGD, so I got blamed for everything. You know, so
Yeah.
the further up I got on the ladder, the more you held responsibility for the people that worked underneath you. But a lot of them weren't your direct. They didn't report directly to you.
Right.
So if they made a mistake, it was a directive from their boss. You know, it's like one time I went to a printer and I learned this. I was printing some magazine up here, and I said, "Okay, so you're going to do the separations for the cover, right? And then print it." He goes, "Oh, we don't do separations. You have to go to a separate company for that." I said, "No. I've learned this. If I go to a separate company for that, and your printing job comes out off kilter, you're going to blame it on the guy that did the separations. The guy that did the separations is going to blame it on you." And that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
Always, you know, if you're going to be responsible for something, be the one they can blame directly if you make a mistake.
Take responsibility.
And I'm very honest, and we're very transparent. And if somebody misunderstands me, I learn from that experience, even though I thought I understood it so clearly, without question, but I was still misunderstood. So when that happens, I take that particular misunderstanding and I put it up at the very top of when I'm talking to a client about the program. Please be advised that we do not buy streams. We don't guarantee streams. We don't buy streams. We provide combined playlist followers. And you can go on our website, you can look at our case studies,
mm-hmm.
and you can see that our numbers are incredible. Like 55,000% increase. Now that doesn't mean they got 55,000 views. That means if they started with 20, we increased it 55,000%. So you have to,
right,
add that up. But our numbers are really good. They speak for themselves. But yeah, you learn from your mistakes. I'll never stop learning from my mistakes. I mean, my interns tell me when I'm making a mistake, and I expect that of them. I also expect them to give me input because they're the millennials, not me. They taught me how to do social media. First time I ever did blogging in 1994, I literally cried like the first 4 days I did it. I'm like, I can't do this. But eventually I got past it. That was our very first service. So it was more of a challenge then than it is now.
Wow. Well, what an incredible story. Thanks so much again.
Thank you for having me.
You guys been watching and listening to the Jason Damico Show. Be sure to check out Gale's material in the description box below or to the sides. I've worked with her before. She's fantastic. Her team is fantastic as well. 100% guaranteed satisfaction. And we will see you guys on the next episode.
Bye, everybody.